So Matthew Pinsent.
Attention, go. Get ready, please.
Voice of authority. I think when you've got somebody of that pedigree umpiring your race, you're not going to try to play any games. So the Diamond Challenge Sculls is off. Oliver Zeidler for Germany against Quentin Antognelli, representing Monaco, and here representing Oxford Brookes.
Yes, a look at that start from Antognelli. He has really jumped out there. He's looking to put some early distance into Zeidler here and put him under pressure. But again, like we saw in earlier races, you can just see that bit of sweep of wind across the water that they are about to hit. So I think now it's going to be about who can keep those strokes long, who can stay efficient, and who can keep things really clean.
I'm loving this very, very dynamic style from Antognelli here. Also an Olympian in Tokyo, and, you know, really moving fast. Quite fluid movements, isn't it? Quite quick.
Yeah, he's an impressive athlete. He won the ladies' plate here with Brookes in 2018, 2019. He was a finalist last year in the double sculls and just lost out to that impressive Irish lightweight men's double. I mean, even in Tokyo, you know, he came third in the C final, I believe. So not a million miles behind Zeidler, but it's going to be about whether that power, I think, again, from Zeidler in the German boat with the flag on the oars there is going to be able to win out as we come, looks like what's happening now, in fact.
Yeah, so I guess when you come up against somebody with that power, with that pedigree, then you've got to take it to them, and that's exactly what Antognelli did off the start. We noted the stroke rate, the dynamism of his stroke, and you can see the contrast there. Zeidler, longer, stronger, lower, relying on that power and thinking about pacing all the way through the course. And Antognelli, I think, is trying to do what he can to see if he can get an early break, rattle Zeidler. And we've seen in the open sculls, even scullers of this experience, you know, world and Olympic champions struggling against up-and-coming talent, being surprised down the course. It's extraordinarily tactical, isn't it, this kind of racing, Zoe?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we love about Henley, isn't it? Henley is a special place to row, and it can throw up some surprises. But I think what you picked out there about the long stroke in that yellow boat at the top of your picture, just look how long he spends with his oars in the water. So that's the time when you're moving the boat. So the longer you're able to get power against the water, the more you're going to be able to push that shell forward.
Here we are, that yellow flag on the left going down marks them passing the barrier. That is 637 metres into the race. So in a normal 2K race, you'd be past the 250 mark, you'd be past the 500 mark, and these guys have to wait for their first marker to know exactly how far they've gone for that 637. And, well, that means they've got through the start phase of their race, which is all about the speed and getting the boat moving. And now they're into what has to be the most efficient part of the race. They've got a long section in the middle of the course where they want to be able to move efficiency, not building up any more lactic in those legs, those enormous legs that both of these athletes have.
And I think that's something that we talked about a little bit earlier, I think, in the week, about the difference between eights racing and singles racing. I mean, I don't race in a single. Well, I've raced once, actually, and I won, so I'll take that.
You're a winner.
But I think the real difference is how much in a single you can respond to the race around you versus in an eight. Eight's kind of, you get up to your speed, you're at your top speed, and you pretty much stay at it. Whereas in a single, you can be much more reactive to the crews around you. You can drop yourself down. You just have a bit more control over the whole thing. But then equally, when you do want to make a change, it's hard to then put that energy in to get the boat speed up.
Well, there's a brilliant insight into different boat classes and boat moving from Zoe to Toledo, and you're absolutely right. So I think we talk a lot in the crew boats as we've been watching these races this week at Henley about the importance of communication. You know, as a cox, you are the key person in communicating through a boat, but some of the communication is non-verbal, seeing how your crew are moving, encouraging each other, athletes shouting at each other. But communication in the single is really only between, you know, your executive functions and your animal brain, and one is screaming at you, I don't want to do this, I gotta stop, and the other is saying, no, stick with the process, this is exactly where you want to be, this is how I need to feel at this point to get there. And I think the communication inside the brain in the single is fascinating, the psychology of how to compete when it's only you.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier in the week, didn't we, about how singles are a sort of special breed. People who row in the single are a special breed of human. And this is it. Look at this race in front of us now. Two really impressive athletes on a pretty unpleasant course with thousands of people on the bank. And it's just this gladiatorial battle. which you have to have a little bit more will than your opponent to stay in.
Yeah, and there we can see as they pass through the 3/4 mile signal, the indicators there showing just over a length advantage in favour of Ollie Zeidler, and the former world champion and winner of this event in 2019 will be sitting in quite a commanding position there. That kind of distance is one where you can turn it on if the opponent starts to respond pretty quickly. You can, as you were saying, Zoe, achieve a quick change of speed in a boat class like this, and he's able to observe his opponent. Meanwhile, we see Quentin Antognelli glance over his right shoulder. He's just going to be able to see the stern, that distinctive yellow Empacher stern of Zeidler, and hoping that he can stay in touch. And this is his time to really try and attack.
Yeah, and Antognelli there, you can see as well, he's keeping his stroke rate higher, so taking more strokes per minute than Zeidler. But nonetheless, Zeidler's still moving pretty fast, and you know, sometimes in an easy race you see a crew or a sculler able to sort of really kind of take it almost to more like a training pace. But I mean, this is still very much a race here. Zeidler's not going to be able to settle, I don't think, and let this one kind of have too much of a breather here, really. He's going to have to keep pushing this.
Yeah, and as he's tiring, he also has to keep his attention on his opponent, because a couple of strokes there, and you see Antognelli struggling a little bit with the poppy water, a couple of strokes there, and well, he could be slipping through him without him noticing, so you have to respond very quickly. You can see them both struggling, I think, looking at the blade work here, with some slightly tricky waters, some slightly tricky crosswinds as well.
And I think that was something of a marker, really, of Zeidler, especially of his earlier career. He was unbelievably strong, still is unbelievably strong, but his sculling technique was slightly more wobbly, I suppose. You know, he's what we talked about earlier, he takes these really great long strokes, but there were quite a few strokes just like that one we saw there, where he caught the water a bit, one or went a bit deeper. So I think that's what he has to be really careful of, especially in such a high pressure one-on-one environment as this.
You're absolutely right, and I think you can see that sometimes the arms, even a sculler of this quality, can tighten up a little bit, and gripping and tightening is a recipe for further problems. And I think we saw that in Tokyo, didn't we? You know, in honesty, as the reigning world champion going into Tokyo, I think he finally came in 7th. Antognelli was, I think, 15th or so. So both of them, I think, potentially struggling with that kind of very, very tricky, rough conditions we saw at the Tokyo Olympics last year. It's not quite so tricky out here, but even so, the conditions we've seen all morning have challenged the competitors.
And like you say, that extra little bit of distance here at Henley, in the fact that they're rowing upstream, but also the racecourse is just that tiny bit longer, that can quite often catch people out. And it often catches these really experienced athletes, because their bodies are so used to doing that 2,000 metre row that actually when they have to do maybe possibly an extra minute of rowing, that is when the shoulders tighten up, the arms get tight, and that's when you can see these really interesting turnarounds.
Yeah, you can sort of see that in this shot here. Occasionally you'll see the arms go sort of slightly different heights as the boat rolls a little bit in the waves. You've got cross-wash coming in from launches. But the crowd are welcoming back Oliver Zeidler from Germany, Frankfurter Germania Row Club, and very pleased to see him back on this track. He's now looking rather more confident, a bit more shelter coming in through the steward's enclosure. He'll have been pleased to get this one out of the way. Antognelli, a fellow Olympian, strong competitor. He's been at a higher rate of striking, more strokes per minute all the way down the course. But here comes Ollie Zeidler.
A really solid performance there from Zeidler, but pushed all the way by Antognelli, who crosses the finish line now.
Confirmation in the Diamond single sculls, open single sculls. Oliver Zeidler of Germany beating Quentin Antognelli from Oxford Brookes. Thumbs up from Zeidler. Looking forward to the final tomorrow.
And again, there's that camaraderie we were talking about, and I think that's often something that's really seen in singles, because they don't have any friends to train with, so quite often the friendship between the crews is even stronger.
Yeah.